Oops, my name is wrong.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Northshire Presents. Thank you all so much for being here tonight for our sales rep evening. We appreciate your presence very much. My name is Rachel. I'm the event manager for Northshire Bookstore in Saratoga Springs, New York. And I am here, as I almost always am these days, with my good friend and colleague, David Wood, event manager for Northshire Bookstore in Manchester, Vermont. A couple of very quick notes before we get started this evening. First of all, as you're coming in, you probably noticed that we are recording this evening's presentation. It will be up on our YouTube channel within the next couple of days. But if you're not, for those of you who want to have your cameras on, we have the settings such that we are only recording those of us who are unmuted and speaking. So we are not recording for you for perpetuity, and you can have your camera on. But please do use the chat box for any comments or questions that you have throughout the evening. David will be putting in just a moment a link into the chat with a blog post that includes all of this evening's discussed titles for your convenience. And we thank you very, very much both for being here with us this evening and for your incredible loyalty and support. Being an indie bookstore is never the world's easiest business. And these last couple of years have been challenging for really everybody. And we couldn't do what we do without all of you and your continued support, and it means the world to us. So thank you all so much. And David is going to introduce our very special guest tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rachel. Yes, I'll put this link to the blog in here a few times again throughout the evening. And note, you can also find it if you don't remember the whole URL. Just go to northshire.com and click on the notes from the Shire blog. It is currently the latest post there. Well, first up, we've got Maureen Carb from Workman. Maureen, welcome, and tell us about the books you've got for us.
Thanks. And sorry, I hope it's okay. So Workman is one of my bigger publishers, but I am going to throw in a few other publishers as well. So I'm Maureen. I live in Massachusetts. And so I'm what's called an independent rep. So I represent a bunch of different publishers. Most of my books will be from Workman because they're my biggest, but I have a little bit of everything for you guys today. A lot of good meaty fiction, but I thought I would throw in a few curveballs. So to start, I actually have a few books from a publisher called Union Square, and I started with them. I thought I should peer into the future to see what kind of books you guys most want to read. So I'm starting out with my yarn tarot, which is pretty fun. If you see this strength card with the little cat. So if anyone has any crafters that they love gifts for, or just need a little help with the future and you like knitting, the yarn tarot is amazing. Just in case my yarn tarot didn't work, I had my essential tarot too, just in case. But also to help me peer into the future was another new book, Psychic Spellcraft, really beautiful, kind of breaks into all the different types of like numerology, all different ways to kind of tap into what you guys want to read in the future. I figured that might help me out. But Union Square is a lovely publisher of a bunch of different things. This is actually called Sterling Ethos is their imprint. So I thought I would start there. And those books all helped to kind of tell me that you wanted to start with the future, because it's always fun to hear about books that are kind of coming out a few months from now. So Union Square has a book called The Wolf Den. It's the future / international, because this was released in the UK last year, and it was a bestseller at their big chain, Waterstones. And I love this book. It's set in a brothel in Pompeii. And so the author, who had visited Pompeii, you can see the remains of the brothel, and you get down there and you can actually see on, forgetting the name of it, but the paintings on the wall, and all the characters in the book are actual enslaved prostitutes. There's better words for it. And so she's taken all these real people and woven this amazing story of their lives in Pompeii. So it's this really great novel, and it's going to be part of a series. There's going to be 3 books. And the main character, Amara, has been enslaved. Her family was lost all of their money. And so she was enslaved. And so she's fighting for her freedom, which to her means finding a rich, wealthy person to kind of essentially take care of her and get her out of the brothel. And the brothels in Pompeii were literally translated as wolf dens, which is where the title comes from. So this is just a really amazing kind of good meaty novel that will be out towards the end of March. And it actually is going to be paperback, the first book too. So it's even a great one to pick up. So then I'll continue into Algonquin and Workman, which are some imprints. And we've had some really good successes recently. This is Honor, which was just picked. I know from years ago, Oprah picks were always the big one. Now it's Reese Witherspoon. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with her book club, but this is the book club for Reese this month. And this is just I personally, for what I like to read, I like to escape. I don't love these realistic novels. This is a realistic novel, but it was just so beautiful that it didn't matter. I still loved it. It tells the kind of alternating tale of a female reporter who's returning to her home in India, and she's reporting on a woman who's been burned because she had married a Muslim man. And so you have these alternating love stories between the two women, and kind of find out their relationship with the caste system in India. Just a really, really good book. So that's one good fiction pick right now. Another one that's just come out, or maybe just coming out in a week, is Perpetual West. This is by author Misha Marin. And this one is a young couple that moves to El Paso. And so they are often going into Juarez. So they're going back and forth across the border. And the way that the cultures mix down there is the same way that their lives are kind of mingling. And then the husband goes missing, and you don't know if he's been stolen or if he's run away from his wife. And she herself is having problems, having moved there and left her family. And so it's just a good meaty novel of a kind of relationship and what's been happening. I personally, it turns out that the husband is in love with a Mexican wrestler. And so there's this great kind of Mexican wrestling angle, which I found really kind of not hilarious, but it was really good. It was like a good little hook to the book. Then I have another one. This is going to be out in paperback, or just out in paperback, on Fragile Waves, from a new little publisher called Erewhon. And this is just a really beautiful, touching immigrant story. A family from Afghanistan is trying to make their way to Australia, and there's 4 children, and they escape into these rich kind of rich imaginations. And so Erewhon is actually a sci-fi publisher, or a fantasy publisher. And so I would call this more like magical realism, or very literary fantasy, because the children, it's real life, but they're escaping their kind of tough situation. And it's a beautiful novel. It's won a bunch of awards. It was an NPR Book We Love, a whole bunch of stuff. Speaking of fantasy, I love books that kind of delve into fantasy worlds that we all know and love. So this is Patty Callahan, Once Upon a Wardrobe. And she's pretty well known for, she had another book that kind of delved into the world of C.S. Lewis too. And so this is just really lovely. A little boy has just read the new book that's just come out, A Lion, a Witch, and a Wardrobe. And he's just is obsessed with it. And he actually has a terminal illness. And so his sister seeks out C.S. Lewis to kind of find out if it's real on behalf of her brother. And it's a really touching look at kind of what fantasy can bring to our lives as children. It's really beautiful. Okay, still good for time. Furia is also out in paperback, and this is a novel. This was another Reese pick. I have a lot of them. I don't know why. I actually, this is a pretty small publisher for in the realm of publishing, so it's awesome that I have so many. And this one, if you have any teenagers, or if you just like to read YA, which everybody does, this is a good, not romance, but she wants to play soccer. She lives in Argentina. Her family doesn't want her. They don't really allow her to play soccer, but she has what it takes to become professional. She also happens to be in love with the kind of young star of her little town who went off to play in Europe. So is she going to take up his offer and go to Europe and just play, or is she going to do it on her own? So it's a really good story of kind of her finding her way by herself. I love that one. And that was it for my fiction. So that's kind of what I have for fiction right now. And most of these, except for the first one, The Wolf Den, are out now. If you're not into fiction, you want a little nonfiction, I got lots of that too. If you like ripped from the headlines, Made in China was a really big book when it was out in hardcover, and now it's out in paperback. And this is kind of the terrifying story. Somebody opened up a package that they bought online of Halloween decorations, and inside was a letter from one of the workers that had packaged the box in China, and they were pretty much almost enslaved in these labor camps. And so this reporter kind of goes undercover and kind of delves into this whole world of where our fast fashion, et cetera, is coming from, and kind of the lives that it's impacting. So this is a really powerful bit of nonfiction, kind of ripped from the headlines books. I have a lot of cookbooks as well on my lists. So this is not, you would not necessarily pick this up and say, oh yeah, that's a beautiful cookbook, I'm gonna go for it right now. And the reason is, it's a cookbook meant for our times. It's a cookbook for those who are just tired of cooking for ourselves for the past like 2 years during COVID. And it's just, she kind of starts out just breaking down, you know what, it is hard work. Like, hold up, why is this so much work? And kind of delves into the psychology of cooking for ourselves. But then she does give you really beautiful pictures and ideas and inspiration, on top of just kind of daily things to eat, like how to stock your pantry so you don't have to think about it. And it's funny because sometimes you think, well, everybody knows how to stock their pantry, but no, sometimes you need some like inspiration, and this book is it. And so this is a brand new cookbook, and she solves problems with her cookbooks. Her first cookbook was Good and Cheap, which was meant, they ended up printing some for people to buy and printing a bunch that they donated for shelters. And it was just really good ways to cook for cheap. And so she is a great problem solver with her cooking, which I love about her. Another book that was in kind of Made for Our Times. Sorry, I didn't organize very well. You can tell it's a mess behind me. This was a cute little book featured in Good Morning America this morning. Sorry, this is the sad part of my presentation apparently, but this is a book meant to just help with people who are grieving. It is kind of a sad time that we're in right now. And she does a lot of cartoons and she does cards. And so it's just, it's kind of like a hug in a book if you know somebody that needs this right now. Very cute little ways of dealing. It's not a linear type of grief book. It's just a really understanding type of book. And then I think oh yeah, the supply chain is fun times. So I did not get my shipment of Befriend Your Brain, which was probably next, I believe, on my list. And so Befriend Your Brain is by Dr. Faith Harper, and it's a book meant for teens or for really anybody. And it breaks down the science of depression. It breaks down the science of maybe ADHD or any issues, and really helps, especially teens, kind of embrace what's going on in their head and think about not just, how to cure depression, but kind of what's happening. And, it's not your fault. It's not anything that happened to you. It's literally the science of your brain. And it breaks it down. She actually, I hope swearing is okay on this recording. She's known for a series called Unfuck Your Brain. And so counselors loved Unfuck Your Brain so much, but they didn't feel comfortable giving it to teens for obvious reasons. And so they reached out to her to ask her to remove all the fucks. And that's pretty much all she did and made this book. But so many people wanted it for teens that she published it for that reason. And then one last book for the guy on your list that hates to go to the doctor, just throwing it in there. It's in a funky little size, so it doesn't look like a regular book. It's almost like some sort of manual or something, so they maybe are more likely to look at it. I don't know. Very real life, how to find the right doctor. I have some really good nonfiction publishers, so I kind of can't help but throw those in. And then to kind of round out, Valentine's is technically the next holiday, but I'm way ahead of myself. And I do have a publisher called Cider Mill Press that is located in Kennebunkport. And I couldn't help it. They just have this really adorable version of Peter Rabbit that they just reissued. It's this artist, Charles Santori. They have all the rights to his art, and it's just really cute Easter basket. So even though you're probably more thinking of Valentine's Day candy right now, I couldn't help it. They have a whole collection. So they reissued this. So I thought I'd throw that in there in case you're looking for any gifts. And I think, yeah, that was what I had. I always end a little early. So if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about anything.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Maureen. That was fantastic and really appreciate it. And I've got some new books to add to my reading list. Next up, we've got Chris Kerr. He is from, he represents a number of publishers like Maureen did. Chris, tell us about your books.
Oh, first and foremost, thank you for inviting me to this evening. I'm a huge fan of Northshire Bookstore. I first visited the store in the late 70s as the regional sales rep for Oxford University Press. I'm originally from Columbus, Georgia, so you can imagine what it was like to step into Manchester and, Saturday Evening Post cover. And, I wasn't disappointed at all. The store was, in those days, across the street. And I think the Morrows lived in the basement and had to come up through a trap door in the sales floor. So I've followed it over the years. And I think you should probably be aware, if you're not, that it's a nationally recognized store and very much a leader in independent book selling. And I think we're extremely fortunate that the store has had extraordinary leadership through 2 generations in the Morrows. And you're particularly lucky that the newest owners are so strongly inclined to support its survival. I'm going to dive into this grab bag that constitutes my life. And they're really books that I've personally liked, and I hope I can convey some of that enthusiasm. And the emphasis is, where possible, on local authors. The first is Imaginary Peaks by Katie Ives, who lives in Cambridge, Vermont. And she's editor of Alpinist magazine. She's worked for it for about 20 years, and she's been the editor-in-chief for the last decade. But this is about one of the great frauds perpetrated among mountaineers in the 60s by hucksters who just invented this fantasy range in British Columbia. And they got a lot of people who fell for it. And it really said something about, the flakiness of map making and people's willingness to believe complete utter nonsense. She's very clever about it. Bird Brother has already had a short film made about it, which is in circulation. And this is about the author's salvation. He grew up on the streets of Southeast Washington, D.C., early member of a gang, gravitated to the National Zoo, where he was entranced by the birds and the raptors, and they were clever enough to give him responsibility for it. He's one of the very few Black master falconers in the country. So it's a story about the gifts of nature and the kinds of salvation that one person experienced through it. And I hope you have a chance to see the film as well. One of my favorite local publishers is Bowen Books from Peterborough, New Hampshire. And they've just done this encyclopedic celebration of New England's fascination with parades going back to the middle of the 19th century. It's encyclopedic and loaded with more than 500 illustrations and completely utterly fascinating in its exploration of our commitment to find any excuse for a parade. And as a child of the South, of course, I grew up with these celebrations. Also from Bound Book, a collection of essays by Howard Mansfield, whom many of you will know. He's married to Cy Montgomery. They live in New Hampshire. They tour together. This is his essays about our fixation on the search for an ideal America, be it religious or communitarian or in pursuit of sports. He's a very compelling writer. He writes for Yankee, the New York Times, and he's a lot of fun. So if you have a chance to see him in the flesh, please do. But the essays themselves are quite wonderful as well. And also just speaking of local, this is an essay. Actually, I'm looking at this reeling. I should have bought better ink cartridges. But anyways, this is Whaling Captains of Color by a Black media executive who lives on Martha's Vineyard. And it's a profile of 50 Native American and Black sea captains in the whaling industry in the 19th century. And, the heroism of their lives and their example. He also does a lot of touring, and there are some wonderful YouTube videos of his appearances, but it's also just a reminder of, our one of our strongest strains of our New England heritage. And just also on the issue of biography, Ted Osias was only the second actively, openly gay member of the State Department to be elevated to the rank of ambassador. He was Obama's ambassador to Vietnam, and the most compelling parts of his essay are the capsule history of our 25 years of trying to reconcile with the Vietnamese, which for him was crowned by Obama's visit to Vietnam. It's a wonderful story. He talks a lot about his family, his husband and their children. And in a completely different vein, one of my favorite local publishers in Rochester, Vermont is Inner Traditions, who do a lot of non-traditional health and healing. But we own a fabulous rescue puppy who has done a great job of training us. And this is really about the secret ability of animals to read our body language and how to be a better person and how your pet can make you a better person. The same people also have done this wonderful series of translations of medieval witch tales, which are beautifully illustrated with spot art. And the editors have added prefatory and afterward notes to each of the tales, but a lot of them were part of the forbidden history of folk tales, which you don't necessarily find in the Brothers Grimm. Two McGraw-Hill titles I work with are essays on the future of our retirement income. And this is talking about the kinds of habits that can help you segue into retired life. This author has done a previous bestseller called You Can Retire Sooner Than You Think, and he's the host of Money Matters. So he has some insight into what he's talking about. We also have an essay on Bitcoin. If you followed Wall Street headlines for the last several months, it's been one of the wildest roller coaster rides in monetary history. The author, Bobby Lee, is the head of the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world. And so he has some insight into the process. And if you read it and understand it, please call me because I don't. So anyways, one of my favorite books, Star Maps, is in a new edition. This is more than 300 colored plates, 500 black and white illustrations. These are a lot of classic atlases and star maps that have been done over the years, going back to the earliest. It's fabulous value for money, and it's basic reference book for people interested in this subject. Speaking of probably one of the most exciting trends in publishing, graphic novels publishing, and you're particularly fortunate that the leadership of Northshire has really pioneered graphic novels in the store. And that's because they're obviously listening to you. One of my favorite to come out in the last year is this bind up of the first 9 volumes in Saga, which is really one of the great science fiction fantasy stories. And there's a reason that Hollywood is going to the well. I mean, a lot of some of the most original publishing going on these days is in graphic novel format. And a lot of that is because a lot of reluctant readers come to graphic novels because they're non-stigmatizing and welcoming. And this is particularly true of urban libraries, which support them because of their attractiveness to non-native speakers. One of my favorite local publishers is Choose Your Own Adventure in Northern Maine. They originated the idea of role-playing kids books where you get to choose your path through the story. And originally they sold this series to Random House and then took it back about 20 years ago and relaunched it. There are about 50 volumes in the series at different grade levels and reading levels, but they're still as impactful. And what's wonderful for us is that a lot of the parents out there actually learned how to read with these role-playing books. But they're not exclusively the domain of Choose Your Own Adventure. The Capstone people have done a whole series of survival stories for kids. The very first and most successful in this Million Copper series is their book on the Titanic, and 2/3 of the choices in the book kill you. So they put 5 of these books together in this box set, and it's terrific value for money. Also from Capstone, one of the most popular new heroines made famous and popular by New England's children's booksellers is Yasmin, who is a Pakistani American soccer player, really wonderful, warm spirit in her own right, and she's doing extremely well. Just again, on the theme of graphic novels, one of the most popular sports franchises for kids is Jake Maddox, and they've now extended this into video gaming. And again, they're done in graphic novel format. So they're accessible, exciting, and unlike Japanese manga, which is where graphic novel formatting began, there's no gratuitous sexuality or overt violence. Again, from Capstone, a wonderful non-traditional take on Amelia Earhart. They make the point that in addition to being an aviation pioneer, that she also found that one of the restrictions on women flying was that most of the clothing available to women was not really conducive to getting into an airplane. So she designed her own clothing. And because she was married to a New York publisher, she knew how to promote and publicize them as well. The search for her and Wiley Post aircraft shows up on the front pages every 2 or 3 years. It's still one of the great mysteries of the last century. We also have a wonderful tie-in with Sports Illustrated for Kids, who have done a wonderful series of books. And this is about a little girl who's taken to the ballet by her family, who imagines herself on the stage as a ballerina, envisions actually having her own ballet troupe. And these books are extremely well received. Just because I don't really get this platform very often, I have to show one of my all-time favorite books from the last several years. This is a celebration of the icon of the American Eagle. It's extraordinary value for money. It's really one of the all-time great gift books out there. And I had to check with the publisher today to make sure that they still had stock, and I think there's plenty there. And just because we're talking about children's publishing and kids, I have to mention that we are fortunate that Northshire has a fabulous children's section. It's really a model for the industry, but they also have a terrific selection of card games. And when I got to Oxford University Press in the late 70s, I can't tell you how valuable having played authors was as an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, including, of course, the book that nobody can get their hands on anymore, Huckleberry Finn, and the classic Go Fish, which I was just playing with a friend in the hospital the other day. The same people produced the Ryder Waite tarot deck, and this was the original design that has sort of been the template for all subsequent decks. And it was designed by an actress who traveled with the famous British thespian Ellen Terry in 1910 when she did this pack. And it was unusual in that it was the first to actually have fully illustrated minor and major arcana in the deck, and comes with a handy little guide on how to actually read tarot, which I can't do. Anyways, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was wonderful. Really appreciate it. And more tarot, that's great. Up next, last but not least, it was a perfect segue, I think, with talking about the kids stuff. Nikki Mutch from Scholastic. Wonderful to have you back. Nikki, tell us about your books.
Thank you for having me. A big thank you to David and to Rachel for putting this together. I had so much fun picking out the books for this, so I have a lot for you. But thankfully, you guys can review this at any time, and the great blog that David put up has all the titles. So let's start. The first thing I have, I've grouped them all by age. So the first ones are board books. The two that I'm so excited about for the spring are Peek-a-You, which is a new line for us called Bright Brown Baby from Andrea Davis Pinkney and Brian Pinkney. There are going to be a lot more of these beautiful books for bright brown babies, and Peek-a-You is our first. And then also Everybody Dance Now, which normally I wouldn't make people take like a book that's so heavily Easter, except this book is so much fun. It's so much fun. There's touch and feel on every page. It doesn't just have to be for Easter. It doesn't even mention Easter, but it could, and it would look really cute in Easter baskets. And then picture books. So these are for ages 3 to 7. Again, Bright Brown Baby, like I said, this is a new series for us. So the first one, The Treasury, is actually 3 picture books in one, 3 stories in one. And we're going to be doing more of these from Andrea and her husband, Brian, as we get down the road. We Shall Overcome is from the 9-time Coretta Scott King Award winner, Brian Collier, and it is so gorgeous. His illustrations are absolutely amazing. He takes this amazing gospel protest song and he turns it into this beautiful picture book that teaches people in general that life is hard and this is how we overcome things. Love You by Heart, the Peter Reynolds book. Oh, this book, you can give it as a gift card, and I think you should. I think you should buy it. It's the same price as a card, a Hallmark card now, except it's all this beautiful story about how you love somebody before you even know them. Peter wrote this for his brand new grandson who was born last summer, and he was over the moon. And this is the story that he told. So it's great for grandparents, and actually it would be a great gift for grandparents from the grandkids for Valentine's Day. More picture books. So yes, the very exciting news is that Colin Kaepernick is with Scholastic, and he is publishing a whole line of children's books, all about protesting, being an activist, and standing up for yourself. I Color Myself Different is a true story about how he was the only child of color in his class. His family, he was adopted into a white family. And when he drew a picture of his family, everybody was white except for him. So that's his story, and it's how he is proud to stand out. It's almost time for Carnival. So Beese's Carnival is out there, and it's fun and beautiful and lively. If this is not a book that calls for a celebration, I don't know what is. And then the last picture book I have for you is My Moms Love Me, LGBTQ. This will be out in time for Mother's Day. It's coming out in March. It is so gorgeous. The illustrations are great, and the inclusivity is great. And then many of you probably know our Acorn and Branches books if you have little ones. These are our new series to get kids to grow as readers. So we have an entire new Acorn series coming out this spring called Racing Ace. It's absolutely adorable. The back of every book will have little tips on how to build your own model car. Cat Kid, this is book 3 and it's coming out April 5th. So pre-order it from the store now. It comes with a gift with purchase while supplies last. If you're looking for a new series for those 7 to 10-year-olds, let's talk about Bad Food. This series is hilarious. It's heavily illustrated. The jokes are hilarious. The illustrations are actually done by a 10-year-old in the UK named Joe Whale. Joe has been all over TV. He's been on the Ellen Show. He's been on Today Show, Good Morning America, all of those things, because what he did was he started teaching kids how to doodle during when coronavirus first hit, when COVID first hit. So super cute, super funny, great for fans of bad guys. And speaking of books for the fans of the bad guys, the Mayhem series. The first 3 are out now. And let me tell you, one of my very best friends who has a 7-year-old kid who loves these type of series that are heavily illustrated, that have a lot of action, she said to me, the thing that I hate the most is that he reads them so fast, and then I have to wait 6 months for the next book to come out. Guess what? We did all 3 within a couple months of each other. So the first 3 are out. The 4th one is coming. These are funny. Again, this is for fans of The Bad Guys and Dogman. And then I have some new books and series and paperbacks for 8 to 12-year-olds. Hearts and Crafts. This one has my heart. At the end of every single book, there will be crafting tips. And then Horse Country, because kids are still obsessed with horses. All you have to do is look at Netflix and see how many horse shows there are for kids of this age. A ton. And both of these, Hearts and Crafts and Horse Country, they're both going to be series. And then 2 new Wish novels are coming. And I absolutely love these Wish novels. They're sweet. They're friendship stories, often with a little crush, maybe a little hand holding, nothing more than like a kiss on the cheek. They're super, super clean, and every single one features recipes. And then 2 more paperbacks for 8 to 12-year-old animal lovers, My Otter Half. Go and get this now. And the reason why you need this is because this book has been the #1 best-selling book in Scholastic clubs and fairs for the last 3 years running. And now bookstores are getting in on it. And all you have to do is mention this cover with a dog and an otter to your kids. And I bet you 5 out of 5 kids are going to know exactly what book you're talking about. And then the other one is Buster. Oh my God, this book is so cute. It's funny. It's sweet. It's all about what happens when a boy finds out that his dog can not only understand everything he's saying, he can also speak English. What happens then is that Buster gets called into doggy court. It is hilarious and definitely worth a read. A couple new books for middle grade. The first one, When the World Turned Upside Down. Yes, this is a COVID book. We have a COVID book that just came out, and it is about how these kids got together in this apartment building to help each other out and to help their neighbors out during one of the scariest times. So I think this book is great for kids, especially if they've struggled through the pandemic, because it's actually a very hopeful, happy book. It's the End of the World. I'm in my bathing suit. Absolutely hysterical. What happens when a group of kids in a neighborhood are left home by themselves and all of a sudden the power goes out? They're cut off from all the other towns. Nobody can get in touch with them. Their parents have all gone to this big family event, and all these kids that were left at home, they have to deal with possibly the end of the world. Very funny and very cute. And then Join the Club, Maggie Diaz. This one is heavily illustrated, kind of like in a journal. It's perfect for kids who don't know what their thing is. There are a lot of kids that don't have a thing that they're like the best at, or the thing that they most want. And that's Maggie. So she starts middle school and her friends are like, you got to join all the clubs because you got to find your thing. So that's what Maggie does. She joins all the clubs until she finds what her thing is. One of my favorite authors ever, and I know that these books have sold so well at Northshire. Thank you so much. Alex Gino's what was previously called George. We are now fixing the mistake that we made. Melissa said that Melissa is her name, so we are changing that. This is the new cover, Melissa. It's coming out April 5th. If your kiddos already have a copy of George, they can go to the Scholastic website and for free print out a copy of Melissa, a dust jacket, so they can put it on their George book at home. And then Alice Austin is Alex's newest book, all about LGBTQIA+ history. It's absolutely amazing. It is so beautiful and stunning. This is a book that I think adults should read too, not just middle school kids. But this one is our book of the entire year for middle schoolers. It's called Witchling. It is amazing. It's funny, it's smart, it's inclusive. It's about 3 girls who have reached the age when girls get their magic powers and they go into their covens. Except these 3 girls aren't sorted. They're what they call leftovers. They have to work together to solve a big problem to actually become witches. Super cute, super sweet. Pre-order this now. It's coming April 5th, and you don't want to miss out because we have these beautiful special enamel pins of one of the characters, Edgar Allan Toad. That's a gift with purchase while supplies last. Now we're on to YA. And these 3 fantasy YAs are 3 of my favorites. Into the Blood Red Woods is all about what happens when a brother and sister are given the kingdom by their father. They have to split it. They're supposed to rule together, actually. The brother decides he wants all the power. He enslaves his sister, and this is her story. And then Poisoned by Jennifer Donnelly is coming in paperback on April 5th. This is also a great one to read if you like fractured fairy tales. This is based on Snow White. But what if the evil stepmother wasn't actually evil? And then lastly, Fire Becomes Us, which takes place in the roaring 1920s. And what happens when some people have magic and some people don't? Well, magic can buy you power. It can buy you money. It can buy you votes. If you don't have magic, you don't have anything. And then these are all, I love these. They all tell a little bit of a different story of romance. These are for all ages 12 and up. They're all what we call clean teen. There's no sex, drugs, and rock and roll in them. So Loveless is about what happens when you find out that you are asexual. This is a story about being asexual. It's a story about loving your friends platonically. And it's a really great book. And there are so many teenagers who are reading about this right now. Debating Darcy, which is about the speech and debate team and 2 foes falling in love. One Way or Another is actually a love story to yourself. It's about what happens when you're really anxious, you can't sort your feelings out, and how you get back to calm and centered. And then the last one, which is coming out soon, this might get awkward, is just a really fun rom-com. It's very funny. It's based on, I'll remember the show that it's based on, a movie that it's based on. But I'll go to Kaleidoscope for now. All right, so Kaleidoscope by Brian Selznick. This is for everyone, which is the reason why I didn't put an H on it. It's for ages 10 and up, but it is one of the most beautiful books about love and grief that I've ever read in my entire life. Right now, with all the love and grief that we have going on, this book is so important. He actually wrote this during the first part of COVID. He was stuck on one side of the country and his husband was stuck on the other side. And his husband is a doctor. And he had this thought that, what if something happens? What if one of us dies and the other one can't be with them? So that's what this book is. Every single chapter is a different and yet the same story of love and grief told in many different ways. You can almost, if you're really quiet when you read it, you can hear the beads sliding around as you turn the pages, as those beads shift and move and make a different picture every single chapter. There's art that starts out each chapter. It is absolutely amazing. Brian Selznick, you know from the invention of Hugo Cabret and Wonderstruck, this is a book that you do not want to miss. It will live with you forever. And then we're on to some graphic novels. These are perfect for your 8 to 12-year-olds. Manu, the Aquanaut, which is coming March 1st, and Miss Keence's. And Rima Chronicles. Oh, this fantasy is amazing. And actually for your kiddos who love the Amulet series by Kazu Kabushi, this is Kazu's wife, who is his colorist, and she's helped him with all the Amulet books. Now she's writing her own stories, and we could not be more excited to also publish hers. Red Scare, which is all about deep fear, people in this country. In 1953, it was the communist scare. People were terrified. It's very, very, very much mirrors what's going on now. Even in the fact that they included polio. One of the main characters is a polio survivor. And then Magical Boy. This is for ages 14 and up. It is LGBTQ. It is a free web comic that now we're putting into book form. And then lastly, I have klutz stuff for you because these are some of my favorites and they're perfect for any age, adults too. Watercolor Wishes is only $9.99 and it's really cute. It's super slim. It's got 18 mini artboards. It's an amazing price point. Friendship wish bracelets. So these are based on those wish bracelets where you make a wish when you wear them and when they fall off, your wish comes true, but we're making them friendship style. Pastel Studio. I was obsessed with pastel crayons when I was little, and I know a ton of kids that are now. And Sew Your Own Ice Cream Animals. Very cute, very sweet, and perfect for ages 10 and up. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much, Nikki. We really appreciate your time and everybody's. Maureen, Chris, Nikki, this has been just a delight this evening, and I hope you all found some good books. I know I did. Again, you can find all of tonight's books on our blog, and I put the link in there a few times. And we'll see you at another Northshire Presents virtual event sometime soon. Have a
Thank
great
you,
evening, everybody.
Rachel.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And have a great night.
Good night.